welcome to Talking Horticulture. We're on episode 9, and today we're going to be talking about ash dieback, which is a really kind of catastrophic disease that's affecting our ash trees in the country here and right across Europe. So over the next while we'll be chatting about what ash dieback is and what does it mean for our ash trees around the country. So Michael, what is ash dieback? What's causing all this grief?
Well, we'll keep it simple. It's what we call a disease or a fungal pathogen that's getting into the ash trees, and it's killing them off. Pretty kind of the way, I suppose, Dutch elm came around and killed off a lot of our elms that you would have come across on the side of the road. Many of the roadside trees that you'll see now around the country, you'll notice them starting to have less leaf cover. And that's going to be your ash dieback, and it's going to affect mature trees, young trees, everything is going to get it in the ash family.
So we're looking at potentially the vast majority of our ash trees being killed off in the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's the way it's looking, and there's no, right now there isn't any sort of a remedy or a cure or that they seem to have come up with.
So they're saying that if your ash tree isn't showing symptoms yet, it probably has the disease, but it's just not far advanced as maybe the ones that are dying or are dead at this stage. Like it's
like Pokemon. It's going to catch them all.
That's showing our age.
Yeah, it's going to catch them all. It's going to get them all. It's inevitable. And the unfortunate part about it's going to have so much knock-on effects for everywhere, parks and gardens, but mostly roads, because as you drive the country, the most common tree you see in the side of roads is an ash tree.
Hurling. It's going to have an awful effect on hurling. There'll be no hurls for a couple of years.
Or will there be a load of hurls?
Or there'll be loads of hurls, yeah.
The hurley makers could be rubbing their hands together going, we can get these ash now.
That's one sure thing. There will be no shortage of good quality firewood over the next 10 years because there will be a marked increase of trees that will have to be felled because they will be stone dead.
There'll also be the opportunity for people to, I'm going to take that down now because of the old ash dieback. But that's a chestnut. Sure, I think it has the ash dieback there on it. So there's going to be all that sort of a...
Is that a problem though? Like people using this as an excuse, like
and you're going to have people going at us who may not be, professional users of chainsaws and have not have the right equipment to go at it, and all of these problems are going to come about from it.
So you've talked previously about trees and a condemned tree and whether you let it live or you let it die or do you cut it down. What's the story with this disease? Like, are we talking if you cut them, you pollard them back, you cut 50% of the crown back, you allow new shoots, will these survive for a while, or are we talking that these is a complete removal if you have ash dieback in your ash trees?
It's going to depend on a whole conglomerate of factors. So how bad the ash dieback is on it. Is there a large amount of dead wood in the crown? If it's at that stage, it's probably not going to have a lot. It's not going to have a lot more to give. So you're probably going to be into a removal. If it has a little bit more to give and it mightn't be in an area that's high use, you might be able to string it out for another while, reduce the crown down and keep stringing it along for as long as you can, rather than we just going around flattening everything we see because it might have ash dieback. It's getting ash dieback. Some of them will, like some of the mature trees will string along for a number of years with these. So I know the ones at my own house now, I suppose they're probably in their second year of it, and you can start to see, serious failure starting to come in it. By next year, I will be able to make the decision on whether they're going to have to stay or go. It'll be a matter for me though. I will thin them out. I won't just take them out in one go. That's how I'm going to do it. But everyone's going to take a different decision, and everyone's going to have a different cost on it. Not everyone's going to be able to pay a tree surgeon to come in and do it over a couple of years. So all of them things are going to...
That's the issue that I'm finding with it is at the moment that I'm dealing with it in the place that I work is I am now given this choice. Do I look at the trees that are in the high traffic areas that are potentially going to be dangerous and get the tree surgeon in to floor them and to remove the risk straight away and pay for it once, or do I look at paying for it twice in respect of let's get the tree surgeon in, let's reduce the risk, reduce the crown size, reduce any of the dangerous aspects of it, allow it to reshoot, and then ultimately the tree's going to die unless they build up a resistance to it. Unless there's, like, we're so used to herd immunity with this COVID at the moment, like.
Well, ultimately, that is going to be the thing. It is going to die. And for those of you are wondering what's the symptoms, well, suppose you get a bit of foliage wilt. This time of year, don't confuse that now with a tree with autumn leaf fall. You'll go a much kind of blacky brown colour, would you say? The leaf
It's
wilt.
very, very visible that you'll see the branches, you'll see little twigs at the end of the tips of the branches, and you'll see leaves behind them. So it is very kind of, it's hard to miss, to be honest. We'll put up some pictures now during the week of ash dieback, so what you can look out for. Or if you think you might have ash dieback, send them in to us, and we'll happily let you know if it is ash dieback or something else. But more than likely, it probably is if you see a problem in your tree. The problem with the ash dieback is it's a fungus, and it's spread by spores. And just looking up there online, it can spread from 20 to 30 kilometers in the wind. Is an airborne spore. So you can imagine that if someone had it in your garden or a farmer has it down the road, more than likely all his neighbouring properties are going to be affected, and they're going to not domino effect. It's going to keep on spreading. So it's going to be a big problem, huge problem.
Yeah, it is. And so if you have trees in your garden, that's kind of, you're probably going to notice. It was more this year I really noticed it, as I said, kind of a much lighter crown, not as dense over the summertime there, that sort of thing. Sections of it maybe with no leaf on it at all. And if you were to look at the younger stems, if you were up close to them, up in the crown, you'd see where there were sections that were either dead or dark, dying back, and some of them would have maybe small lesions in some cases on them, that sort of thing. The problem that also will come about is colonization of other funguses. Colonization of insects as well, which will get into where a section of a large branch dies off, and you'll have all them problems coming in. So, but, nobody panic just yet. You're not going to get up in the morning, the tree's not going to be lying across your back garden. So nobody panic just yet, and that it's the end of the world as we know it.
So it's kind of like if we get a cut, that we will cut ourselves. The cut won't kill us, but potentially where that wound is, something else will get into it that potentially could kill you. Like, I don't know, something like sepsis or some other disease. Like, it's the same with trees.
You're such a medical man. You're in the wrong business. The medical podcast.
They don't call us tree surgeons for nothing.
The medical podcast of plants.
But this is going to be the problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's going to let in. The wounds will attract other diseases, which potentially could kill the trees more. But we're very early days. Like, when is it's only in the country in the last
2012, was it?
Yeah, it's not. It's not 10 years, is it? It's not even.
I think it was first discovered in Poland. It was in the early 90s, and then it moved across Europe and that sort of thing. And from there, then, but I think it was around 2010, 2012, when it started to really hit here.
And I think it was noticed in the west of the country first, but it's very hard to kind of narrow down exactly where ground zero was, I suppose. When you look at, let's say, the west of the country, and it came from Poland, and if it is an airborne fungus, you would imagine that the west coast or the east coast would have been affected first. So does that suggest it was brought in on plants? Like, was it brought in?
They reckon that it came in nursery stock saplings.
So that's how it started.
Yeah. So that goes back to the whole idea of when of Ireland as an island, and why we're bringing stuff in, and when the oak processionary moth, which is a pest of oak trees, when that came in there last year, again it came in imported trees, and why we're importing them when we've so many great nurseries in the country who can produce our own stuff, So
And you can't get ash trees in there. You can't buy an ash tree.
no,
None of the nurseries, you can't buy them in from Europe anyway.
No.
You can't. None of the Irish nurseries are selling them because
they happen to cultivar now that's not susceptible to it.
So it's a kill all.
Yeah, it's just an outright
lethal now.
chopper.
So when you look at all these trees that are going to die along the side of the roads, it's probably one of the most prevalent trees in our hedgerows.
Yeah.
The one that is let grow.
Yeah. I'm feeling warm already. Go on.
What
feel the heat off the logs.
That's the answer. It's firewood. But what are we going to replace? What's going to take over? What's going to be our new hedgerow tree like? Are we going to, because we can't plant new ash trees?
It's a sycamore.
Sycamore, very underrated tree.
Yeah, it's all right.
You're not your favourite tree.
Not my favourite tree because it's awful for growing in yards. It's always sprouts everywhere.
It will grow out of a wall.
Well, so does an ash.
They're
very hard to pull up when you're trying to pull an ash sapling. But yeah, it's probably going to be the sycamore as a hedgerow tree to be the same size. But it's not going to be. It's not going to be the same until somebody comes up with a disease-resistant one.
You can't treat them though. There's no.
Not yet. No.
You can't go and literally spray a full stand of trees.
But it's who's going to pay for that? It's like canker on a chestnut.
The damage is done. It's too expensive.
If you have that, I have one of them there, and the bark is peeling off it like it's gone in most sections. But who's going to pay to get that sprayed? Like,
the cost is going to be massive.
Imagine you to spray. Yeah, no one's going to spray all them trees inside of the road. So,
is it going to be a potential hazard for road users now over the next couple of years?
And you'll find a lot of the councils will push landowners to flatten them and all that sort of thing. So, sharpen your axes out there.
Because I was driving home the other day and I stopped counting when I got to 100 on my 15-minute drive home of trees that I saw were fairly far gone. That they weren't dead, but they were fairly well advanced. That a good winds will knock the dead branches off the top, certainly.
Yeah, like my road was full of elms and ash, so the elms are obviously gone, and now the ash are getting it. So
the Dutch elm disease was back in the 80s, was it?
I know. It was still in some places still where you get the odd one or two that's still.
But that's when it
kicked off back then. Yeah.
Because there's very few of them left now.
For sure, when ash dieback came around, I didn't believe it. So you've seen one of these articles in the paper. I remember it coming out and I said, "Oh yeah, sure, that'll affect us." But it did, and I ate my words.
Yeah, so there will be plenty of scope for people doing reports and surveys and tree surgeons and stuff. There's going to be a very marked increase.
Don't tell anybody that.
There'll be a lot of trees.
Nothing, no scope for that. Nothing.
But you can't test it, can you? Like how if Mary had a stand of ash trees at the back of her garden, can she take a
you could,
or send it to someone like
you can, yeah. You can get a lab test on it if you really wanted it, but visually you'll know straight away. If you get someone who's competent out to look at it, you'll know straight away. But if you had like a specimen one somewhere that, and it's on the grounds of a big estate or somewhere, yeah, you can but that will come down to where it will affect if it moves into other species.
Yeah.
Then.
So it could potentially, if it does start affecting other trees, it could change, could it?
Yeah, because we don't know enough about it yet.
It's very early days.
Very early days. You're looking at something that's been here in the country, in Ireland, less than, it's around 10 years now. It's only starting to affect it now.
You asked the question there, before we came on air there, of it started off, Ground Zero looked like it was Poland when it was first identified. But why now? Why is it, this is the big question. We don't know the answer, do we? Why is it all of a sudden just exploded?
It's probably been, for here, it's been travelling. I suppose. So it's on the slowest train from Poland the whole way to Ireland, and its arrival here. But it's amazing the way something like that can be sitting in Poland there for years maybe, and then it makes its way across. Like I suppose like the coronavirus there, the virus has been there, it's hidden, and then it makes its way around the world.
So it is like a lot of these things, like coronavirus, like ash dieback. That sure, I remember Christmas 2019. We were laughing about coronavirus. That we'll all be dead of it in 2020, and kind of laughed it off. I didn't kind of expect it to be this 18-month long restrictions, and still there's some, like, if we took the correct damage limitations back then, equally could be said with like ash dieback. If we knew about it, if we knew about the problem earlier, there could have been limitation. Like we could have damaged some of the
definitely
collared it like into a
we could hear. Yeah, because we're an island, we definitely could hear. But
like that, you even said it yourself. You didn't think it was going to be as big problem.
No, I didn't. I laughed it off. Because I looked at it as something that was going to affect stands of commercial ash. Never thought about it.
Big mature trees.
Yeah, I never thought about it in that sense. I never looked at it that way, but there you go.
So I think we're going to shake it up a bit now that we can meet in person. We're going to go out and look at a few ash trees in the lashing rain as we look out the window. But
it's not a problem for you though, sitting at home listening.
Yeah, we'll go out and brave the elements, and we're going to have a look at a few trees that are affected with it. So,
but we're not made of tin, so we won't rust.
We won't melt
we'll
anyway.
Be fine.
So, in an instant, we'll be in the woods. So we're out in the rain, and we've just walked. We're walking down towards the wood, and we've just stopped at a native iris hedgerow, which is fairly open. It's not sheltered or anyway. It's down by a watercourse, and we've seen an ash tree that has severe ash dieback, would you say?
Yeah. So you can see now on it here that you can see the lesions on the stem. You can see where it's shooting out a load of growths down towards the bottom, and up as to describe it to people, it's as if you've seen a roadside hedge which has previously been cut, topped and sides. The ash regrew on the top, and you can see where it's the stems are a browny green colour, and you can see where sections of them are green and then black and then green again, and then the leaves have all turned brown and are weeping, but you still have a lot of green stems on it. And then up at the very top of the stems is fresh growth where it's trying to shoot again from there, but it's a clear ash dieback right in the middle of this hedge. So
it almost looks like blight though.
Yeah, do you remember fire blight?
Yeah,
kind of
similar
for someone to, if they wanted to get that idea. But that is a prime example, and we're going to post a picture of that on the Facebook page and that. But you can really see it there now as a good example of what someone might find in a hedge around their house or that.
So just down from it, we're looking at other ash trees they're much more mature, but they're in full leaf. And you can see this tree is much more, so it's not like it's dropping the leaves early or anything like that.
Have a look at the one here beside you. If we move down along the hedge,
we're talking only less than
about
3 or 4 meters.
Yeah, there's one, and I'll also post a picture of that as well. And there's no so there's no signs of ash dieback on this one at all.
Very healthy. Like
really healthy,
lovely lush growth. And it's not even, when you look at the one that's affected with the ash dieback, it's almost like we mentioned there earlier on about the autumn, like autumn time when the leaves are almost dropping off it. You'd almost mistake it for being just that time of year.
The colour difference though, if you watch the colour, that has the one that has the ash dieback has gone immediately brown, where your autumn ones will fade, into a lighter brown over time. This one here is amazing. There's no sign of it whatsoever, and it's just right beside it. So it's one to watch to see how does that.
And like, what's the why is that? Like, we're talking less than 3 or 4 meters, and you're talking chalk and cheese. Like this one doesn't even have a bit of it. Yeah. Why is that one being affected and this one's lovely?
That's the thing about it, and that's what we were saying for people in their garden, not to just jump on a bandwagon that all of their ash trees are going to die immediately. That is the way it's going to be. There's going to be some hit and some missed.
So we're walking along the hedgerow now a bit further, and in the hedgerow, like a typical Irish hedgerow, we have a ash tree that was allowed to grow into is it semi-mature?
Yeah,
Semi-mature tree. So it's probably
60-70-year-old tree there.
But nice tree, nice canopy, and this is affected as well.
Yeah, so you can see now on this one that it's a much sparser crown. If you look standing up underneath it, you can really see through it. A lot of small deadwood in the upper crown, and ash dieback is really kicking in here on this. So you're probably looking a couple of more years, maybe 2 years at the most, and that's going to really be the end of that one then.
So it's going to. So if you're looking at a 70, 80-year-old tree like we're looking at the moment, there's no point pruning that back to allow reshoots. Or what are you condemning that tree?
No, I wouldn't right now. I would see how it's going to perform over the next year or so, because what you're going to find is a lot more larger branches in the crown, and you'll see the smaller branches slowly disappear, and then you're going to know, right, it's really on the way, and then it's time to remove it after that. But if there's no, you'll notice on that though, it's not shooting on the main stem.
No, it's very very sparse. It had ivy growing up it a number of years ago, which has been cut back, and the whole stem is exposed now with dead ivy, and there's no sign of kind of regrowth or new growth.
No. So you could say it's probably low vigor there in it, but, you know, or vigor, talking of vigor and vitality. So, you know, it's not shooting along the main stem, so it's probably not going to respond overly well to reducing it in height. So you're looking at probably, let's see how it runs its course.
So a number of years ago, its brother tree, which was only about 5 meters down from it, fell down in a storm. Would you say that died of ash dieback, or was it just like?
I doubt it. If it fell in a storm, I doubt it. I see the stump of it there. Yeah.
Like, are these trees? Does it jeopardize the root structure? Like, does it affect the stability of a tree, or it's just the crown?
Well, only in the case of a secondized colonization of something. So if some other fungus may get into it because it's weakened by the ash dieback. But other than that, I don't think ash dieback's going to make it fall down. You're looking here now at a stand of younger ash. They're they're not bad. Just a little bit of deadwood, little at the end, the tips.
We're talking maybe 15-year-old ash trees that would have been planted as whips maybe in the early 2000s, and like that, they're not bad. They're not terrible. Some of them do have the disease, but again, like, are we just going to let them? Are we going to have large stands of trees? Like, we're looking at the one in the hedgerow. It doesn't look as bad because you have your hawthorns, your hollies, your honeysuckles, all the other sort of flowering things are still there, and it's not as visible. But if you have a stand of a couple of thousand or a couple of hundred ash trees, are we just going to leave them?
It's going to be difficult for someone who's growing them commercially, I suppose. That's really going to affect someone like that, you know. So that's going to be interesting to see how commercial growers are dealing with it. Maybe that's something we could look at, is speaking to a few commercial growers and see how they're looking at it going forward.
It's interesting. It's an interesting disease, and like that, we're talking widespread annihilation of the ash population in the country. Sad to see it go, but look, it's just one of those things. And there, look, I'm just looking even further down. There's an entrance into a field there, and there's an ash tree growing out the top of a wall, and it's as healthy. So these trees they're very easily spread. Like they're really synonymous with the Irish landscape.
Well, just to go back to Dutch elm disease, I know that Tagish were looking for landowners and homeowners who had elms growing at their house or garden or farm to contact them, ones that had survived Dutch elm, and were trying to find species that may be growing in the Irish landscape, you know, a cultivar or subspecies, whatever you want to call it, growing in the Irish landscape that may have been missed and may be resistant. So that might be something that someone is going to research into and see, is there anything like that, something that has been missed.
It's interesting. So I think that really kind of sums up ash dieback, and we've kind of covered a lot of the key points. This is something that you're going to be hearing about a lot more in the next couple of years.
I think we'll be back here again with something more on it sooner rather than later. I think
we might try to do a video on it and show the actual signs now, because this is the time of year that you're going to really see it very prevalently. Like it is a very noticeable disease in the tree. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for listening as always.
And look, we'll be back next week with another topic. And if there's something that you want us to talk about, anything, whatever you want, if there's a question that you need answered, or there's something that you find interesting that you would like discussed, or something that's happening in the country that you'd be interested to hear more about, we might know all the answers, we know some of them.
Fashion, politics, whatever you've got, we'll throw it. We'll throw our fucking spark in at it. We'll do something on it. So yeah, go on, try us, see what we've got.
Anyway, until next week, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Catch you later. Bye.